welcome to this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Tristyn Leo, self-taught software engineer and entrepreneur who turned adversity into opportunity, and now as founder and CEO of Tristyn Tech, he's revolutionizing the startup ecosystem by providing affordable, high-quality software development teams to help founders launch MVPs faster and find product market fit more efficiently. Welcome to the show, Tristyn.
Thank you very much. I'm very honored to be here.
You are welcome. Welcome to the show. Welcome to India in this online form, Tristyn. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk right now. We'll be talking about how we can democratize tech entrepreneurship like you have achieved for yourself. In this backdrop, we'll have our conversation. But before that, let's understand a bit about your journey, your background, so that the audience knows a bit more about who they are listening to.
Sure. And thank you for the introduction. My name is Tristyn. I grew up in a small city in Texas called Midland. And I grew up in a single-parent household with my mom. My dad passed away when I was 4 years old. And for some reason, I decided to play life on hard mode. I actually dropped out of high school in the 10th grade. I didn't attend a single day of the 11th or the 12th grade. I wish I had, but I didn't. And I also, as you mentioned, didn't go to college myself. After high school, I sold mattresses until I was 24 years old, and I didn't do too well selling the mattresses. And so I started at 24 to think like, oh my God, did I make a mistake? I should have gone to college. Why didn't I do that? And but when I was selling mattresses, I taught myself how to code, and I got my first job as a software engineer. The first year, I made $40,000 a year. The second year, I made it to 70, and then 120, then 180, and I made my way up to about 240 when I was working at Show Oil. I've been a part of a few different successful startups, and I've been a part of a few different not successful startups. And interestingly, I learned more from the failures than I did from the successes, but I learned a lot on both ends. And as you mentioned also, I went on to create my own tech startup. With the experience I had in the startup world, I bring that to new startups and help them find product market fit and succeed.
Absolutely, absolutely, Tristyn. So to understand it better now, why into tech? Means how did you get this idea about and when you are at that age and at that time when you have difficulties around, people think of surviving rather than looking at the future thriving. They may have dreams, but I want to understand your motivation, your perseverance about, and especially about your interest in the tech industry.
So there's always been something with me where I'm just like, not satisfied with where I'm at. And when I was growing up, my mom always told me that I could do anything I wanted as long as I set my mind to it. And I really believed that to be true. So that's why I thought I could succeed without college, because, I'd set my mind to it. And like I said, I found a lot of difficulty, but when I was 21 years old, I'm 31 now, but when I was 21, I moved to Austin, Texas. And in Austin, they're calling it the new Silicon Valley because a lot of tech companies are migrating to Austin from, Dell, Apple, Tesla, SpaceX. They're all in the Austin area. And while I was here, again, I was really struggling, but I looked around and I saw that technology seemed to be a pretty big industry in the area. And I heard from a friend of mine that you don't actually need a college degree to be a software engineer as long as you can code. There was a serious need for software engineers, and the companies didn't care where you came from. If you could do the work, they would hire you. And so I spent about a year and a half teaching myself to code, and luckily for me, it's something I'm actually very naturally gifted at. I happen to be pretty good at what I do. Honestly, I'm a very quick software developer. I can build things very quickly, and it turned out to be valuable. And it's one of those things where the universe seems to I've always found out that I've always been where I need to be. And even if I don't understand it, I happen to come to Austin, I happen to be skilled at software, and it all just happened to work out for me. As long as you don't give up. If you keep trying, it seems like anybody could find success with what's around them.
Right, right, Tristyn. So tell us a bit about, about Tristyn Tech. You already sold one of your companies, Apply Now Leasing. So tell us a bit about what you did in terms of uh, the companies that you founded. Secondly, the products that you created, what problems they solved. How did you come to those problems that, okay, these are the pain points that you solve through your products and companies? I just want to understand your mindset, especially when you are in that phase of development growth, looking at yourself, so that others who are in that same pace, they can understand through that mindset of yours at that point in time.
Yeah. So with Apply Now Leasing, I started that in 2016. It was kind of how I got into the tech world. And I created a website that would allow real estate agents to easily run credit and criminal background checks on lease applicants. And I started the website, and it had a form that every realtor in Texas uses. And within the first 2 months, I got a cease and desist order from the Texas Association of Realtors, where they said, "Oh, you can't use this form. It's only promulgated for like realtors, and you're not allowed to use it in this form." And so I found a buyer out of Silicon Valley, and I sold the company to him. And that's whenever I realized that, like, I actually don't know how the tech industry works. And so then I started looking for work at tech startups. I wanted to work for startup companies to see, like, how do they work? How do they get funding? How do they operate? How do they grow? And so that led to an 8-year career working for startup companies. After I sold Apply Now Leasing, I had a couple of jobs at a few small startup companies. One of them was called Embold Health, and I was the first engineer that they had hired. And within 2 months of them hiring me, I built the MVP, basically the first version of their software product. And within 4 months of building the MVP, we went on to raise $24 million in funding. And so I learned a lot from that because I saw the company get a large amount of money and like how they grew the team and how they kept everybody motivated. And that was a good experience. From there, I worked at a few other technology companies, one of which was Shell Oil. I worked in the renewable energy department. And on that team, there were 3 separate teams, and I was leading one of the teams. And my team had the highest morale. We had the lowest turnover and the happiest engineers. We were innovating like crazy. And I learned a lot about leading teams, and that gave me confidence to feel like I could do things on my own. So earlier this year in 2024, I created an AI company that used AI for teachers in schools. And I thought that would work, but I realized I didn't have what they call founder market fit. It didn't make sense why I would be building that product since I didn't go to college. I didn't finish high school. And so I didn't have like, a network of teachers. And so I struggled at that earlier this year. But while I was doing that, I realized that when I would go to people trying to sell the product, they would say, "Well, we don't really want this, but could you build that?" And I would say, "No, I'm trying to sell this other product." And I would go somewhere else. And they'd say, "Well, we don't want this, but could you do that?" And I'd said, "No, I'm trying to sell this one product." But again, I realized through doing that there was a real need for like custom software to be built. And so that's when I pivoted strategically to Tristyn Tech, and I just started building software for other people. And I guess it comes down to, trying things and, like giving it my all. And whenever I realize that something's not going to work, I'll pivot. And that's a common word in the tech industry where you strategically pivot to something completely different. And a lot of companies, it turns out, do that. Like YouTube started out as a dating site, and you were supposed to upload like videos, and you would maybe be able to find a partner. That didn't work, so they pivoted to just videos, and obviously it worked out very well. But like I said, I think for me, it's just I always tried things. I always believed I could do whatever I wanted. Like I said, because my mom told me that. Like she'd never lied to me before, and so I always tried things that, frankly, some people might not be willing to try. And if it doesn't work, then I do something else. And eventually, Winston Churchill said that success consists of going from failure to failure without the loss of enthusiasm. And so I think that might be the trick for me.
Without the loss of enthusiasm. So where do you stand as of today as we enter into 2025, with a lot of this AI, with a lot of technology, we are on the cusp of looks like something very different. I don't know whether it will be good, bad, ugly, but I want to understand in terms of tech development, in terms of software, how do you look at yourself? How have you positioned yourself for 2025 and beyond?
So that's a really good question. That's another reason why I started the company that I have, because my team is based out of the Philippines, and they're a high quality team that I've built a number of projects with in the past. And really, after COVID happened, it became more acceptable to have software engineers that are remote. They all work from home. And so it doesn't matter if you hire an American for 200,000 or one of my engineers for 48,000 a year, much cheaper. You can still get basically the same quality of service. And now that AI has come along, that's really automated a lot of software jobs. You can code so much quicker these days with AI than you have ever before. And so the two ways that I position myself for 2025 is that one, I offer high quality services at a lower cost with global talent. And also, we use AI a lot so that we can build products even quicker. And when you're starting out as a software company, a lot of companies, like when you get funding, let's say you have $1 million and it'll last you 12 months. Um, what you really need to do is deploy your first version as soon as possible and gather feedback from the users and iterate, because most of the time the first version isn't quite it. And so the quicker you can code, the more iterations you get in before you run out of money. And so that's how I position myself, is, like I said, using AI to iterate as quickly as possible and make sure that my clients have success. I have a number of clients right now. One of them just closed their first $200,000 in funding, and they're not even 6 months old yet. And another one, they just closed their first deal with one of the 10 largest companies in the world. And they got, I think, 250,000 for the first deal, and like the promise of millions more, assuming things go well. And I can't say what that large company is because I'm under an NDA. But like I said, my clients are actually finding success, and so I'm very happy about that.
Right. In terms of startups, tech startups, uh, is AI democratizing this whole industry? Or is it at this moment look to be giving some sort of, advantageous tools to many, but then that tool is also available to people who do not know coding and all? And does it look like that in the coming years, uh, there will be, haves and have nots? The lesser mortals or lesser startups will just be playing around in a pond, and the bigger fish, all these big companies, they will be the real ones who will be actually dealing with real tech development. How do you see that? Because everything is seems to be built around just artificial intelligence and all those platforms who are, in who are well funded by themselves itself.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really interesting question, because I wonder what that'll be like in the future myself. Elon Musk and some other big tech guys, what they say is that in the future, everything will be automated. We'll have AI handling most of the jobs. And so what will we humans be doing? And there's this idea that robots and AI essentially will do all the work, and we'll have to tax the robots and pay everybody else a UBI, a universal basic income. And if you're able to automate, every industry, then the idea is that the cost of everything would go down. And if everybody's getting a universal basic income, like, we could basically like travel all over the world, we can do whatever we want. And the real issue is going to be like, how do people find purpose? Because there's a lot of fulfillment in, doing work. And if people can't do work anymore because it's all been automated away, then what do people do for, satisfaction? And so there's that idea. To me, I was reading just today actually that the CEO of Google, Sundar Pichai, he said that they're starting to reach, like, AI is reaching its limit. So we saw ChatGPT come out in 2022, and AI has been quickly progressing, but it seems to have hit a kind of plateau. And so now it's going to continue to progress, but much, much slower than it has in the past. And so I do think like that future where AI does all the jobs is very, very far out. It probably will be coming, like, in a few decades, but not anytime soon, in my opinion. Also, I actually see AI as a little bit of a fad, because, 3 years ago, everybody wanted to be in the crypto industry. And like any company that
Right.
started with crypto, yeah, like VCs would hurl bricks of cash at you because you're in crypto. And then
Yeah.
before that, it was VR. VR was the big thing where the VCs, they'd be like, take my money. And with AI, everybody's trying to shoehorn AI into products, even when you don't really need the AI. And so again, I feel
Right.
like it's kind of a fad, and it has a lot of value, but I think it might go away largely, pretty soon.
Right, right. Interesting points you have made. And as for Elon Musk, yes, he is a powerful man, a very tech savvy man, but he's yet to become the president of the United States to be able to influence everything in the world beyond a certain few things. There are also countries like Philippines, India, China, so many other places where people are much, much more rooted to the ground and would want their lives to be rooted to the ground, and technology only for the use in things. And beyond that, you can't eat technology. You have to, get, you can only use it as much as you. So that is where I wanted to ask you that, in terms of startups in future, tech startups, how should they look at themselves if AI is plateauing out and you start something based on that, and by the time you come to monetizing it or solving problems, you have to do it very fast. Either you do it today, by tomorrow you have many clones, and day after tomorrow everything has changed. So how do you see them? How do you see these future startups in the tech industry? How do you see a future beyond AI? Will it be like that, or it will be just like people will continue to just revolve around AI itself till one day it will not sell enough for them?
Yeah. Yeah. Honestly, if you look at the AI companies today, the AI companies, a lot of them are what we call ChatGPT wrappers. So
Right.
ChatGPT has an API, so you can like use ChatGPT in your programs, and it looks like you have your own AI, but really it's just ChatGPT under the hood. And so the companies that I think will succeed out of that are the ones that are building what we call a network effect. And so with PayPal, for example, I know that in other countries they have like different things. Like in the Philippines, they use Wise. But here in the US and many other countries, PayPal is very popular. And the way that a network effect works is if me and you have PayPal and a third friend of ours wants us to send the money, they might say, oh, hey, you should get a Wise account. And me and you will say, well, we're already on PayPal. And so are like, a million other people. So you need to get a PayPal. And the way that it works is the more users that PayPal gets, the more valuable they are. It's just like Facebook. Like I could make my own Facebook right now where you could upload pictures and post on your wall, but I wouldn't have any users, and so it wouldn't be valuable. And the AI companies that are building network effects like that, where the more users they get, the more valuable they become, those are the ones that I think will succeed. And to your point, those companies are being founded today. And so if you don't start building your AI startup today and start building that network effect, other people are going to pick out the low hanging fruit and build those network effect AI companies before you. And then you basically have to wait for the next wave. Because like I said before, for like the last time it was crypto, before that it was VR. And so there's probably going to be a new tech wave of something. I don't know what it is in the next few years. And that's really where a lot of the opportunity comes from. Is you have to be like on the cutting edge of technology and see those opportunities and create some kind of a company. But it's important to have founder market fit and also build a network effect as you're growing. If you can do that, then it's very hard for somebody to compete with you if you have a strong network effect.
Absolutely. One last question I want to understand is, last few years, especially last decade or so, it was all about fundings. Startup funding, Silicon Valley, fail fast, fail, and all these things, and unicorn and all those words. And then there was also this word bootstrapping. How do you see now going forward for startups? How should they look at? Should they build everything around funding, or should they look at bootstrapping, controlling everything, going the way they want to go, going the path they want to go, and adding value to customers, and still making it think, keeping that idea alive that yes, we can be a unicorn on our own without the pressures of any investor money? How do you see, especially on the tech part here?
Yeah. So I think that bootstrapping is underrated. Like to your point, everybody, when they start a tech startup, they want to get funding as soon as they can. And funding can play a large role, but I feel like the proper path is to try to get revenue early because 10 years ago when Facebook, or 20 years ago at this point when Facebook came out, they didn't make any money to begin with, and it was the same thing with Snapchat and a number of other companies where they would get funding and they would operate at a complete loss for many years. But that doesn't really work in today's economy anymore. A lot of even like the VCs are looking for companies that can actually monetize and actually, you know, earn a little bit of revenue. And so I think that the real path is you start up and you bootstrap in the beginning and you quickly build the MVP, and you have to get that out and start learning from your users and gather market feedback, and then you iterate until you find something that they call product market fit. And then once you find product market fit and you prove that people actually want the product you have and you can monetize, then that would be the ideal time to actually go out and get funding if you need it. And like I said before, it's very important to have the network effect, because if you have a platform and you have a bunch of users and the users add value and kind of create a moat around the company, and if you go to a VC, then the VC might think to themselves like, oh, we could just build the same software as you have, and we could have 100%. But if you have that network effect, then they have to build the software and they have to like do a bunch of marketing to like get users to add the value, and then they also have to compete against you in the meantime. And so, like I said, I think that funding is still important. If you look at like all of the largest companies like Uber, YouTube, Facebook, Amazon, like the largest companies, they all have received venture funding or private funding at some point. So funding is definitely important, but you have to, get it at the right time. I definitely don't think you need funding like to get a company started. And if you do, you might not have the right idea. But yeah, that's my opinion on that. But one other thing, though, is that a lot of companies, or a lot of venture capital companies these days, they look for companies that treat their team as like an all-star team. The way it used to be at a tech company is it's like, oh, we're a family and like everybody comes in and we're going to take care of everybody. But that model is kind of fallen apart because you don't have an infinite amount of money to spend anymore. And so now, instead of thinking of your employees and everybody in the company as a family, it's more of you have to adopt this mindset of hire slowly and fire fast. So if you bring somebody into your team, you don't have months of time to like coddle them and try to catch them up and be like, oh, let me work with you and, make sure that like you're up to speed on everything. It's more like if you hire somebody and you've made a mistake and they're not actually that good, you have to get rid of them and replace them with somebody else, because in the early days of a startup, you really don't have the luxury of, several months of spending a lot of time, with these employees, because the money is tight. In Austin, like the number of companies getting funded is down 25%. And the amount of money that companies are getting is down like 30%. And so there's much less money these days flowing around than there used to be.
Absolutely. There's much to learn from you, Tristyn, about all these things. And I'm sure a lot of people would want to connect with you, learn more from you. A lot of startups would want to learn more from you, and also so many would want to learn about your company, Tristyn Tech, so that they can get whatever they want in terms of business from you. So what's the best way for them to connect with you?
The best way is definitely on LinkedIn. If you go to LinkedIn and type in my name, Tristyn Leos, I should pop up, and anybody can send me a connection. You can also go to my website, tristyntech.com, and you can see my portfolio and the various companies I've worked with, and schedule an appointment on my Calendly to meet with me directly, and we can talk. The initial consultation is completely free, so I just love talking to people, finding out what they're working on, and then offering free advice. One thing with me, though, is that like I'm actually a little selective on the people that I work with. If I feel like the idea might not work out, I'll tell them straight up that like I like your idea, but I'm afraid this might not work. And so I'm going to have to refer you to somebody else if you really want to do this, because my business model really consists of finding high quality companies and working with them to make them successful. So that way, like, frankly, they can continue to pay me for years on end. What I don't want to do is work with someone and like take their money and build their project, and then like it doesn't work out, and then they've paid like a good amount of money to me, and they have no business to show for it. And so I'm not in the business of just taking people's money. I really do want to work with like high quality startups, and if there's any like like we can go back and forth and talk about how we can make like your idea successful. But yeah, like I said, I am a little bit selective in who I work with, but anybody can reach out to me, and I'd love to talk to anyone about what it is that they're trying to build.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you.